think of it as a large vacuum cleaner or a large fan that sucks out air. And then we have what we call these collectors that kind of bifurcate the carbon from the air. And then we liquefy that carbon and then store it on the ground.
Hi, this is Wilson.
Hi, this is Daphne.
Welcome to our ESG podcast show. Today we have a wonderful guest, Trishna from Climeworks. As you know, Climeworks is almost a $2 billion unicorn company that has a vision to reduce carbon dioxide in the world. So it's a big goal, big vision, and also a big and high-growing company in the sustainability field. And today, Trishna, can you tell me a little bit about yourself, your role, and what your company do?
Absolutely. Thank you, Daphne and Wilson. Good to be here. A little bit about myself. I was born in Panama to Indian parents, and then after that went to pursue an undergraduate degree in England, and then did some good old investment banking for a few years and worked in the financial sector. That's when I got a little bit introduced to climate, started to get more and more interested in it, and then went on to do a degree as a Schwarzman Scholar at Tsinghua University in Beijing, and used my time there to delve as much as possible into the climate tech space and explore different aspects of it, green bonds, carbon markets, and then after that worked on a project for AI for climate mitigation, sponsored by two agencies within the Japanese government. And then since November last year, I have been working with Climeworks. It's a global carbon dioxide removal company based out of Switzerland, but we are global and we're trying to pioneer the space as much as possible. And the vision and mission is to hopefully help the climate crisis. My role in particular is covering Asia.
Great. As we know, Climeworks is mostly based in Europe and the Western world. And like you mentioned before, Asia is just a up-and-coming market for you guys. As we all know, like the world has no boundaries, there's no customs check, there's no borders. So we all share the same issue, which is to reduce environmental impact for the world. So do you have any agenda or any ideas how you can approach the Asian market? Because I think it's always 20 years behind when it comes to environmental awareness or even action compared to Western counterparts. How would you tackle the challenges in Asia when it comes to environmentalism?
No, and I really like the question. I think when you look at, and I really like what you said, there are no borders to the climate crisis. Everyone shares it. And when we look at it, Asia in particular, I think 5 of the largest 10 from the 10 largest, let's cut that part. So from the 10 largest emitters, 5 of them are from Asia. If you look at it, India, China, Japan, South Korea, and Indonesia. And they roughly account for 45% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. So I think when you look at the environmental impact coming in from Asia, it is sizable, and it maybe partially comes in from the size of the populations itself. In terms of what we're seeing from an action side of things, I think I'm actually, optimistic because I'm seeing more governments taking net zero pledges at the national level. And when we look at companies, they're definitely starting to take it a lot more seriously. We're seeing a lot of them committing to science-based targets. We're also seeing several of them looking at how to get to net zero, forming their roadmaps. Understandably, it's a very big challenge, not only for Asian counterparts, but as well as for European and US counterparts. But I actually think we're taking the right decisions. We're thinking of it in the right way. And yes, there's a long way ahead, but that's for every single one of us. It's not a problem that can be solved overnight.
Yeah.
I do have a question. Would you like to describe to the normal people, what's your innovation solution to catch the carbon?
Absolutely. No, thank you for asking that as well. I think what we in particular as well do is what we call direct air capture. And what that entails is basically think of it as a large vacuum cleaner or a large fan that sucks out air. And then we have what we call these collectors that kind of bifurcate the carbon from the air. And then we liquefy that carbon and then store it on the ground. And that's exactly what we do from a direct air capture point of view. And then what we do is then work with organizations and companies on a bilateral basis, at least in terms of being able to do offtake capacity agreements for the direct air capture capacity.
During your introduction, you mentioned about AI. How can AI, because I'm in a space, so how can AI help you to achieve your goals? What part? Yeah.
I think in terms of what Climeworks is doing within AI, if anything, I must confess I don't have that much knowledge about it. But if you look at the general genesis of AI, it's at the end of the day always going to be an accelerator, because what it does is collect large amounts of databases if available, and then if very well streamlined, because I think those are two big barriers that I generally see within the AI space, is having the availability of data as well as the good quality data, and then being able to process that data to reach to conclusions that can be iteratively fine-tuned. And that's the essence of it. I think AI will always, I'm not talking about this from a carbon removal perspective, but from a climate perspective, it's always going to be an accelerator. It's not a panacea that's going to solve the climate crisis, but it will definitely help us finding solutions faster, more efficiently. I also feel like when we look at hard to abate sectors, steel, cement, manufacturing, several other sectors, AI can really help in accelerating those, because there are a lot of emissions that need to be abated in those sectors. And that's where I think AI can play an even bigger role. But what exactly are we doing internally? I must say I don't have that much. I'm not privy to that knowledge.
That's fine. I think Climeworks is doing such a noble, respectful thing, and it requires some patented proprietary technology for sure to reduce carbon dioxide in the air. So there's a lot of R&D and research into it. AI, I think definitely will play a role, because you guys have such a strong R&D and technology backbone. So I don't think it's going to be an issue. Based on my understanding, quantum mechanics can also be applied to sustainability, because quantum mechanics is exponential computing power that you can use to solve problems that current existing hardware cannot solve. Like there was a documentary that talked about how we can solve cancer or prevent cancer using quantum mechanics. So I think Google is doing this, investing a lot of money. Of course, competitors like Microsoft, IBM are also investing this. And I think Climeworks will be able to use these new technologies to help further achieve such a huge Herculean mission, I think, because geopolitics in Asia itself, it's a nightmare, because you said you used to work in DC. That's USA only, right? But in Asia, I don't know if you're focusing on a particular country, but I mean, like China, India, Southeast Asian countries. How do you juggle between all these geopolitical issues? That is
Very good question. And I think in the world we are living today and potentially maybe heading towards, politics is always going to play a part, right? And it has also been in the past. It's not something new. When we look at geopolitics in particular. And I think as a global firm that is building their presence not only in Asia, which I look at, but as well as across the world, I think you need to tread it very carefully, look at what the business needs are, but also navigate the political scene in a very sensitive manner. And I think I would like to highlight the word sensitivity here, because that is exactly what is needed when you're, planning to do business and doing business in settings that require a highly strong cultural context as well as political context. So you're right. Politics is always a conversation, and geopolitics as well, and it will continue being. I think Climeworks in particular, what we do is just thread it in a very sensitive and careful manner, because that's the only way you can do business and be good at it, while making sure people, because at the end of the day, it's with people you're dealing with, you can then manage that in a very effective, but as well as empathetic manner.
Yeah. You kind of hinted at the steel industry. I think that's one of the industries you are focusing on for Climeworks in Asia, perhaps? And even in steel industries, there's a lot of like government corruption in many countries. You need to pay a bribe to be able to work with these like government-funded steel companies. And all these big factories, they might more or less have some government connections. So that's something like I echo your point. You have to do it step by step because there's going to be a lot of landmines on the way to sell your products and services to major steel companies.